How many people can finish this statement? It doesn't matter whether you win or lose. It's how you play the game. I don't know how many times I heard that as a child. And I grew up thinking I actually believed that, but when I thought about my athletics as a youth, we never actually practiced losing. Every practice was intended to win. So somewhere, every time we lost, somebody would say to me, it doesn't matter whether you win or lose. But during the practice, they would always reinforce the winning behavior. And this didn't really resonate with me until the night that I lost my title. I was fighting in Mandalay Bay, Las Vegas. Sold out crowd. 20,000 people were there. Electricity in the air. Sitting backstage, as usual, I'm nervous. I'll actually pray, God, please, if you could make the lights go out, that would be great. It's a true story. That's not a joke. There's no punchline. I walk out to the fight. First time my mother had ever attended a fight live. Cage door shuts. Come across the ring, touch gloves. The fight starts. I make one error. I overcompensate. It leads to another error. I overcompensate and it leads to another error. And what I call the quicksand effect started to take place. I don't know if this is how it really happens when you're in quicksand, but on the movies, when you're sinking in quicksand, the more you struggle, the faster you sink. Well, this led to a vicious first-round victory for my opponent. And within about an hour, I went from an arena of 20,000 screaming fans to a hotel room in the Mandalay Bay sitting by myself, staring out the window at the I-15, watching traffic drive by, asking myself, how did this happen? Why did this happen? And what do I do next? I asked myself those questions, completely motionless until the sun came up the next day. And I still didn't have the answers. And this led to this kind of depressive funk, if you will, for the next several months. As a matter of fact, it wasn't until I was on a military visit at Walter Reed Hospital. I do a lot of work with disabled vets. And I met a lot of veterans the day that I was at Walter Reed, and the many days that I've been at Walter Reed. But I met one gentleman in particular who was just fresh off of a plane back from Iraq. He had been hit by an AD. He lost both his limbs, both his arms, and one of his legs. His jaw was still wired shut because it was broken, and he'd lost 90% of his hearing. And I sat there having a conversation with him, and he was so optimistic about life, so positive about the things that were going to happen when he left the hospital. I remember I had to actually communicate with him on a whiteboard. I had to write my questions down, and then he could answer me, but his jaw was wired shut. And I said, one of the questions I asked him, I said, what are you going to do? What's the first thing you're going to do when you get out of here? Expecting some sort of profound answer. And he said, man, with the jaw wired shut, man, when I get out of here, I'm going to have a Big Mac and a fry. I really wasn't expecting a profound answer. But I took away from that, I started thinking about how pale in comparison my loss of the title was to his situation. And as I sit and listen to him talk, I learned a lot of things. I learned a lot about how to be a loser. This isn't about losing gracefully. This isn't about congratulating your opponent when they won, but how to deal with the loss and how to move forward with that loss. Because see, I believe that there's a potential loser in each and every one of you. And we just need to tap into those losers. I think normally people in my position are supposed to give some sort of motivational talk. But people often ask me, they'll ask me what my favorite fight is, and they expect some impressive highlight reel knockout or some first round victory. And it's not what I talk about. The fight that I talk about is one in which I gave a losing effort. If we back up way before the fight actually begins, there's a lot of prep that goes into a fight. My coaches and I will sit down and we evaluate film. We'll evaluate film on myself and we'll evaluate film on my opponent as well. We look at my strengths and weaknesses, we'll look at his strengths and weaknesses, and we'll see how things match up. My coaches come to me and they said, here's the game plan. This is what this guy's going to do. He's going to come across the cage, he's going to use his footwork, and he's going to try to cut off the cage, essentially kind of like backing me into a corner. So we're going to do all these footwork drills to combat this. If he's successful with the footwork drills, which we don't believe he's going to be because your footwork is so good, Rich, but if he's successful with these footwork drills, he's going to set himself up for a takedown. Now, that takedown is probably going to be a single or double leg, and you do these particular takedown defenses very, very well. So we're going to drill these over the upcoming weeks, and we drilled them, and we drilled them, and we drilled them until I was sick of drilling them. But I was confident in my takedown defense as well. And they said, however, if he's able to take you down, he's going to put you on your back, and he's going to try to advance position. He's going to try to move to mount, which is kind of like a big brother sitting on his little brother's chest giving him wet willies. So, in order to combat this, we're going to drill getting back to your feet. And they set up specific drills with me standing back up because I wanted to keep this fight on my feet. I was the stand-up guy, he was the grappler. So we drilled all this stuff. We fast forward. Fast forward to the fight. Film breakdown serves two purposes. One, you're trying to predict your opponent's behavior. Two, you're trying to choose the path of least resistance to victory. Well, as predicted, he came across the cage using his footwork. He cornered me in. I confidently thought, oh, that's okay. I can angle out, use my footwork, and I'll be good to go. But he cut the cage off, and he was able to set himself up for the takedown. And I lost that first personal battle. So I lost that first personal battle. Didn't shake my confidence too much. Found myself in a position that was very familiar. As you can see from my training, it looked exactly like the fight. He set himself up for the takedown. I tried to defend. As predicted, however, I lost this personal battle. And I ended up on my back. Confidence now shaking a little bit. I'm starting to question myself. But as you can see from my training and from the fight, things unfolded almost identically. This is what I do best. I get back to my feet. Although I'm shaking a little bit, I'm still confident that I can get back to my feet. And as predicted, he moved forward and took the mount position. It was at this point that my coaches told me in practice, don't let this happen, because if you do, you've all but lost the fight. I mentally checked out here. I didn't know what to do. I had no solution to this anymore. He had basically done everything that I was prepared for. He didn't throw me any curveballs. It wasn't like something happened that I didn't see coming. I questioned my ability, and this is where being an effective loser really comes into place here. I had 3 personal losses in a row. I lost the footwork battle. I lost the takedown battle. I lost being able to get back to my feet. And then I started drifting off, and I started thinking about some of the things that I saw on film. And I started thinking about the conversation that I had with my friend at Walter Reed. And one of the things that I learned that effective losers do, the first thing that I learned that effective losers do is they have what I call selective amnesia. Selective amnesia is where you take a situation where you've lost or you failed, and you extract all the useful information you can from that situation and use it to your advantage and learn from it and move forward. Forge forward with that information. All the stuff that's going to hold you back, all those mental blocks, I call mental anchors, they'll just do this to you. This is what they do. Because what it does is it causes paralysis in the decision-making process. And I'm in a position where I need to make a quick decision. In the decision-making process, you have 3 options. First option, good decision. That's your best option. Next option, believe it or not, your next best option is bad decision. The worst option in the decision-making process is indecision. And in time that you're in a decision-making process, you cannot have any hesitation. The second thing that effective losers are capable of doing is they're capable of being innovative, thinking out of the box, taking risks. And when you're taking a risk, there cannot be any hesitation. I remember looking at the film here. I remember thinking about a particular maneuver that my opponent did, a certain armbar that he goes for. And I thought, I'm going to take a risk here. I'm going to just give him my arm. Now, some of you may not understand what's going on in this picture, so let me take a second to explain this. He basically, sitting on my chest, is swung around, took my arm. That's my arm between his legs, and it's bending the direction that it's not supposed to. Okay. And I don't have very flexible arms. And this has been tremendously in the wrong direction as I look at it. But I was able to, in this particular position, twist my arm, roll out, and actually get back to my feet. It was so demoralizing to my opponent that the fight was completely downhill from there. And I'd actually like to show you some cool slides of me winning the fight, but it doesn't quite fit with my theme of losing. So, the problem with taking risks is that people oftentimes, you fear something. And basically, the basic fear is failure. Whether it's failure that you're going to look silly, whether it's failure that you have a lot riding on this, for me, possibly a title fight, for you, possibly a promotion, whatever that may be, but typically it's the fear of failure. Early in my career, I grew up in Cincinnati, and early in my career I would travel to all these places to take fights. And I would drive as far as 10 hours from my home city to go fight some guy in some tiny little bar in a town in the middle of nowhere. Now, when you're brought into a show to actually fight somebody in their hometown, people don't bring you in to win. I was always hated by the crowd, the underdog, and I actually liked playing that role. I really liked playing that role because I like to ruin everybody's day. But I think subconsciously I like that role because if I came home and my friends, and I happened to lose the fight, and my friends or my family said to me, "How'd you do?" and I lost, I had excuses. I could say, well, you know, this guy was 25 pounds heavier than they said he was going to be. Or he had twice the amount of experience. Or I had to weigh in on the same day of the fight and they let him weigh in the day before. I had excuses. But all I was doing was fooling myself because although I had excuses for other people, what I quickly realized is that, you know, his opinion of my fight doesn't matter. Her opinion of my fight doesn't matter. His opinion of my fight doesn't matter. But the most important opinion of my fight is my own opinion. I am my worst critic. And at the end of the day, I have to face the man in the mirror. So I learned early in my career to never cut myself short. When I'm training sometimes, I'll get fatigued. It's the end of the day, maybe I'm doing some conditioning, and I decide to kind of slack off a little bit when my coach is sitting there and they're, "Come on, Rich, we got to pick this up. We got to get going." And they know if I cut myself short or whatever. And that's what they're there to do. They're there to motivate me when I have those moments of fatigue. If I give 90%, can my coaches tell? Maybe. What if I give 99? What if I give 99%? 99% effort. The last sprint of the conditioning routine of my day, and I decide to just cut it short by 1%. I probably could get away with that. My coaches wouldn't be able to tell. But I have to go home in the mirror and I have to look at myself and I have to tell myself, you cut yourself short today. And that'll resonate with me through the rest of my training camp. It's going to follow me all the way to my fight. And I can't let that happen. I can never let that happen. One of my favorite Olympic moments was in 1984. The Olympics were in Los Angeles that year. It was the first year of the women's marathon. The United States won the gold that year. Joan Benoit came in first place. But about 20 minutes after Joan won the gold, Gabriella Anderson-Scheiss entered the stadium. The race ran through the city. The final little piece of the race was one lap around the stadium and then a finish on the straightaway. Gabriella came in 20 minutes later. This is what she looked like. Completely contorted, wrist bent, pure muscle fatigue. She was stumbling foot over foot, weaving from lane to lane. The Olympic judges, they approached her to see if she was okay, and she actually tried fighting them off. Like, get away from me. She knew that if they touched them, that if she got touched, she was disqualified. The only reason they let her continue is because they could still see sweat dripping from her pores, so they knew that she wasn't completely dehydrated from the heat exhaustion that she was experiencing. She also knew that she wasn't going to come in first place. She also knew that she wasn't going to medal. It took her nearly 6 minutes to complete that final lap, 6 minutes around the track, stumbling foot over foot, until she finally collapsed in the judge's arms, and they carried her away for medical attention. Her finishing time was 2 hours, 48 minutes, and 45 seconds. Now, the first men's Olympic marathon event was in 1896. Her time of 2:48.45 would have earned her a gold medal in the first 5 men's Olympics in the marathon event. The third thing that effective losers do is they lose with the effort of a champion. I'll say this much. It does matter whether you win or lose, but it really matters how you play the game. Losing is inevitable. Make sure you have the tools in your toolbox to deal with it. Thank you.